Hi, everybody. Chrissy here. We are live again, and this time we are talking with Tina Thomas. She is a private investigator, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. So, Tina, take it away.
Hey, good morning, everybody. As Chrissy said, my name is Tina. I'm a private investigator, and I live in a suburb of Phoenix, Arizona. And I conduct investigations or backgrounds on people, and a lot of my work is on the internet, but sometimes we do things in person, just depends on what we're doing.
Great. So what kind of things, and tell me if there's anything that you're not allowed to answer, because I know as an investigator there may be some things that you can't answer, but what kind of things do you investigate?
So we do anything, let me see, I want to keep it easy enough that everybody understands. Litigation based. So if somebody is involved in an accident or something like that, we will do a background on them and run some social media. So when your parents tell you that whatever you post online can stay there forever and be used against you, we use those to help our clients who are attorneys and insurance agents know or understand if people are really hurt, or if they say, I can't get out of my wheelchair, but they're doing somersaults on the beach or something like that, then maybe they're not as injured as they pretend to be. And then let's see, we do some trademark work. So what that is say, let's see if I can give a good example. Say you have a certain type of basketball and you put your brand on that basketball. So you pay for that, that's your brand, you get money for that. Somebody else comes along and tries to make a copy of that basketball and use your brand. So we'll do some investigation on that, find out who that person is that stole your brand, and help our client kind of shut that down. We do some investigations for investment purposes. So before one of our clients wants to invest, $1 million or $2 and buy a company, we will do backgrounds on the owners of the company and make sure they haven't told our clients any lies. Make sure that everything that they say is valid. And that gives our clients the reassurance that what they're being told is the truth. So those are some of the things that we do that are fun.
Okay. So what kind of education would you have to get to become a private investigator?
So every state is a little bit different. Here in Arizona, I fell into it by accident. My trade is I started working for law firms when I was in high school, and I was a legal secretary and paralegal, so I kind of have a legal background, so I understand how the courts work and how litigation works and all that stuff. But there's sometimes law enforcement, after people retire as a police officer, sometimes they become a private investigator, but for the most part, you don't have to have an actual degree. Many people in my office have backgrounds in criminal justice, and so that's primarily what a lot of people do, have some sort of legal or criminal justice background.
Okay. Are there any kind of certifications that you need to get to become a private investigator?
So different states require different things. Certifications, not necessarily. Certain states like South Dakota and let's see, I think if I can think of another one. You don't need to even be licensed. They don't even have a licensing board. But once you become an investigator, you can have certain licenses, certain specialties. So a certified fraud examiner is one, and you take a bunch of tests and you're certified. You can have certified people who find bugs. They do bug sweeps. So that's when if somebody puts a recording device on your phone or in your home or something like that, those people are certified. I don't do that.
Okay. So when I think of a private investigator, that's the kind of stuff that I had in my mind is somebody that like Magnum PI. But it sounds like there's a much broader skill set and much more things that you would do as a private investigator. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. Anything you see on TV is not even close to what we do. I should have started with that. Forget everything you've seen on TV. I'm not running around with a gun and a Lamborghini and sneaking it. And of course, the kids don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do everything ethically and legally. We're not breaking into anybody's houses. We have to be very careful about the tools that we use. Sometimes we can conduct surveillance. We follow people if our clients ask us to, if they want to see what the people are doing. In some states that we work in, we're allowed to use GPS, which is we track their vehicle. It's legal. We're not well, I guess we are legally stalking them. So you just have to know what state you're working in, whether you're allowed to do those. Arizona, we have an office in Michigan. We're allowed to use GPS. We have an office in Illinois. We're not allowed to use GPS, so not under any circumstances. So we just have to know the laws. But a lot of us do carry guns and things like that, but we're not flashing them around and and driving around like crazy.
Right. So you don't have you don't have a Lamborghini that you drive around when you're doing your surveillance.
No, the key to being a good private investigator is to blend in, be normal. So if we have to be out and we follow people, most of our guys have a very, depending on the state, they have a very nondescript type of van. So in Arizona, we might use a white van to do surveillance. In Michigan, we might use a gray van because that color would blend in, whereas maybe a white one would stand out more. And the guys have to wear just very plain, basic clothing. They have to kind of have a change of clothes with them, We try to stay very far away from our subjects so they don't ever know that we're watching them. And of course, this is all legal. We're not going to hurt them. We're not going to, 9 times out of 10, they don't even know we're there. Once in a while they do, but, those are not great, but it happens.
Do you all ever wear disguises while you're doing surveillance?
They do sometimes, and I have before too. I've worn very long hair extensions, a hat, and glasses to kind of disguise myself when I went into, I had a case where I had to look for fake perfumes, and I went to, I don't know if you guys have them there, it was like a park and swap, like a swap meet. I don't know if you guys have those, but they're vendors that set up and they sell stuff. You sometimes walk in, you walk around, you can buy plants or purses or fake perfume. So that's a good example of one of our clients that had a trademark infringement.
Okay.
But yeah, sometimes they wear baseball caps and blend in.
Okay. Can you tell us, are any particularly exciting cases that you worked on, if you're allowed to share?
Let me see. I mean, each case is a little bit different. I should have expected this question. And I've been doing this for a while, so I have a lot of cases I've worked on. Okay, the best case I worked on, this is fun. We had a guy and he said that he had a surgery on his shoulder, and he said that the surgeon injured him and he could never use his arm anymore. So he said his arm just hung static and he couldn't hold anything in his hand at all. The surgery ruined his life. He's going to be, you know, practically homeless and penniless. And so we did a background on him, and he was organizing businesses, and he was building $1 million house. And then we had a group of people do surveillance on him. So they followed him, and he was, in one hand, he was holding 2 dogs, in another hand, he was holding 1 dog, and they were going like this. And of course, we did social media on him. So he was in some Facebook posts, and he went to another state, and he was holding his hands above his head, holding things that he shouldn't have been able to. So his attorney didn't know he was doing any of this. When our client presented him with all this information that we found out, his attorney fired him and said, "Get out of here, I'm not representing you."
Right.
So fast forward, just one of those interesting people, just really bizarre, interesting people. Just do some internet research, right? Google, and find out that the guy committed a major fraud against some banks. And so he's now in prison.
Oh, wow.
So it had nothing to do with what we did, but he was just a very interesting character. And he played it up that he was going to be homeless and penniless and all this stuff. So that was fun. It was fun to just find all these layers, and we had all this evidence against him.
Right.
That was a lot of fun.
Right. And what you're saying, whenever we do internet safety classes with the kids, we remind them whatever you put on the internet is there for everybody to see, and it doesn't go away. If you delete it from your feed, for example, on Facebook, it might have already gone into the ether somewhere. So as you're saying, you want to make sure kids, if you're watching, or parents, if you're watching with your kids, remind them that they shouldn't be sharing anything that they don't want a future employer seeing. So even if you're, 13, 14 years old now, you might think that posting stuff on TikTok or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or anything is cool and fun. But keep in mind that 10 years from now, 15 years from now, your future employer might be hiring somebody like Tina to do a background on you, and that's going to be visible. Do you ever find when you're doing backgrounds on people that you find embarrassing stuff?
Oh yeah, a lot. And for this particular person, he didn't have much on his own social media, but what he did was he went to a very expensive hotel, and they posted a bunch of pictures of him. And then the local paper did a wonderful spread article on him. And so there were just pictures everywhere on him, and he would tell them, now this is a big thing too. People think if they drop their last name off and they just use their first name and middle initial that they're being private. No, you're not. We can figure it out. We figure it out through your friends or your mom or your dad or your sister. Somebody's got a profile, and we'll figure it out. That's a big thing. And yes, of course, whatever you put on the internet can somehow be found and used against you.
Mm-hmm. Now, I got some questions. I told you earlier we had some questions from the Girl Scouts. Yeah. And one of the questions that I'd like to ask is your field male dominated?
In the past, it has been, yes. And for as long as I've been in it, when I first got into the field in about 1999, it was very heavily male dominated. There were not very many females. And now there's a whole lot more females. Now that there's a whole lot more research, and the males are very open to welcoming the females. In the past, a lot of former police officers have been private investigators, and so a lot of police officers were male. So it was a little bit harder in the past to break into. So I'm very grateful for all the women who persevered and kind of, cut the path for me. I'm one of the younger investigators, believe it or not.
And
But yeah.
there was a related question to that. Were there any women that helped pave the way or that acted as mentors for you when you first got started?
Yeah, there's a lot of women. So I worked for a law firm here in Phoenix, Arizona, and I worked for the firm's in-house private investigator. And she was my mentor. She taught me everything, and she really taught me that you have to find facts. You can't ever let your biases come into play. Your client doesn't want your biases, they just want facts. And then that can't be used against you in court. There's some great other female investigators that have also paved the way. One is named Kitty Haley, and she is, I believe, in Maryland, maybe. And then there's another one, Cynthia Hetherington, and she does a lot of investigator training online. And she's a former librarian, and she's just a wealth of information and knowledge. So them and other women have just really, really paved the way.
Okay. Have you ever experienced any kind of stereotypes with your job? These Girl Scout questions are good.
Yeah. The stereotypes usually come from other people who don't know or have never met a private investigator. They think that I should look a certain way, like I should be wearing a raincoat and a cap and, sunglasses. And that would really stand out almost anywhere, but that would definitely stand out in Phoenix.
Right.
Because it's very hot here. But yeah, most people think, oh, are you checking up on me? No, I'm not checking up on you. I don't care what my neighbors or my friends are doing or whatever. But yeah, that's the stereotype. Or that I know everything. I have access to everything. You just tell me a name and I know everything. That's not true.
Okay.
We have to be very specific and develop information. So I take a little bit of information and then I can figure out a person's date of birth, social security number, address, who lives with you. I don't have a magical database. I really wish I did, but I don't.
That would make your job much easier, wouldn't it?
That would make my job much easier.
Right. So on those police shows, when they go and they type somebody's name in or they scan the picture in, that's probably make-believe.
Almost 100% make-believe, yes. Yeah. And the police have better access to some things, but most of what you see on TV is make-believe. You can't narrow a search down with a certain truck or this or that, or who was in the area on, Tuesday, whatever. That's pretty funny, but.
Do you watch shows like police shows or anything like that and just have a good laugh at it?
Sometimes I do. I like shows that are based more on real fact, real cold case files, because I don't do those type of investigations. I always think those are interesting, how they solve those cases, murders or thefts or whatever, because I don't do any of that.
Right.
But most of the crime shows I can't watch because it's too fake. And even the legal shows, the court shows, it's hard for me to watch because I know how court cases really work. And it's not you nab somebody and then they go to trial and it's done in 30 minutes. It's not how it goes.
Right. So I just want to remind everybody, if you're watching with your kids, just comment any questions that you have and I will ask Tina. But I have more questions if nobody asks any in the comments. If you have questions after the live event, so if you're watching the replay, I know some people are right now, they're still in school with their kids, still doing their schooling at home with their kids. You feel free to ask questions and I will see if I can get Tina to answer them after the live video is over.
Sure, I'm happy to.
Awesome. So another question that I have, what are some tools that you use when you're investigating?
So the main tools that I use are the internet. We have access to certain proprietary databases that the public doesn't have access to, and we pay for those databases, and they give us information and leads about people, where they currently live, who they live with, and then we start from there. We figure out where they live, and then we start looking at court records. So if I live here in Phoenix, then I would start looking in Maricopa County, start figuring those things out. So the computer is the primary thing. Once in a while we do on foot research, but for the most part, a lot of it's just available online for a price, or many sources are free. You just have to know where to look.
Okay. All right. Do you ever use things like cameras or audio or anything like that to when you're investigating, or do investigators use those kind of things?
Yeah, so we have cameras in the field when we do surveillance, and obviously we download those videos about what people are doing, and we send those off to our client so that they can see how people were acting or behaving. Yes, we do have recorders also if we're conducting interviews with people, you know, if they saw a car accident, usually is why we would conduct interviews and things like that.
Okay. And I also wanted to bring this up. In some states, you can't record somebody without their permission. Is that right?
That is correct, yes. Again, that goes back to knowing what state you're in and what the laws are. In Arizona, you can. In some states, you can't. Some states are one permission only. So you just really have to know what the permissible use is. And when we're conducting interviews, if they saw a car accident, we're very open about it. It's nothing we're doing secretively. We tell them who we are, and we say, okay, we're going to record this. Do I have your permission to record? And they say on the recorder, yes, you do have my permission. So it's nothing secretive that's going to be used against them. They have knowledge about it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And kids, just so you know, secretly recording your friends in Maryland, not allowed. So just be aware. Maryland is one of the states where if you're recording, both parties need to give permission to that recording. So kids, just remember that if you're recording your friends for whatever purposes, I'm not going to judge, but whatever purposes you're doing, it's not allowed. So I guess another question for kids. So some of the kids that are watching are in elementary school, middle school. What are some subjects that, if you remember back when you were in school, some subjects that would be useful for them to really focus on while they're in school now?
Well, that is a good question, and it's been quite a while since I've been out of school. So that's difficult, but if there are computer classes, typing classes, I don't know if they still have those. Typing class was good because the faster you go and type reports, the better. You don't want to be kind of going like this. I don't even know if anybody does that anymore. Let's see, biggest one, English and grammar, because you can be the best private investigator, you can be the best, you know, covert following people, get the best video, but if you can't write a report to make sense to your clients, or if you sound uneducated, then they don't believe what you said, even if you've got the video, and even if you tell them what you saw. If there's errors or typographical errors, they just don't believe it. So it has to look nice. Has to make sense, and really paint the picture of what you saw.
Okay.
So they can understand it. So I think those are good. And of course, geography, you have to know where you're going, what happened in what state, if people move to another state. Those are very important to know.
Right. Now, you mentioned writing reports. When in your day-to-day job, about how much of your time would be spent writing reports versus doing other activities that you do as an investigator?
A lot.
A lot.
A lot of report writing. One of my jobs is to review other investigators' reports and make sure that they make sense and that there's no errors and I don't have any questions. I would say probably more than half of my day. So let's say 4 to 5 hours.
Oh, wow.
And if I'm working on a case where I'm typing up a report, I could be typing up a report for 6, 7, 8 hours, depends if my client has a deadline or if they have a court hearing, or they're trying to settle a case and they need it. We might all be working together. We might have one person writing a report, one person reviewing, one person putting the surveillance together. So my company has a team of investigators. We'll work as a team to get that out.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of writing. Listening in English class is really important. If you want to become a private investigator, you don't need to worry about the covert part of it as much as you need to worry about the writing and the ability to write well with that. So that's really, really interesting. And I want the kids to remember this, because if you want to become a private investigator, you need to make sure that you're focusing on your studies. So for private investigator, I know you had said before that is criminal justice is a degree that somebody, if a kid wanted to go to college, that might be a good major for them, is criminal justice.
Yes, if they have no background criminal justice degree, and you can do a lot of things with that. If they're interested, if they're really good at math, they might be really good at financial viability or fraud. You've got bank frauds, they could be a certified fraud examiner. If they're good at math, I'm not. I'm really good at English and spelling and grammar. But yes, criminal justice is the big one in this field. Yeah.
Okay, good to know. So once again, if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask them. We've got a few people watching, so if you're lurking and you have any questions, please go ahead and ask them. But otherwise, again, I've got a few more questions. We're almost out of time, but I do have a couple more questions. Now, right now, pretty much everybody in the country is either working from home or not working. Do you typically work from home when you're as an investigator, or do you have an office that you go into?
I have an office that I go into in Phoenix, and we have a whole group of investigators that are there also. We do have some that work remotely from time to time, just as part of our job. And it's no different. They're researching databases, they're researching courts, and putting together reports to eventually send to our client. So
Okay.
Lots of people work from home at this job. There's a lot of people who are one person or two people operations. We've got a pretty decent sized firm.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got quite a few investigators in our office.
Okay. And do you work 9 to 5, or do you work different hours, or does it depend on what you're working on?
So it depends on what I'm working on. For the most part, my job is more of a 9 to 5 type job, but we do have investigators that start earlier. And of course, the surveillance investigators work a lot of crazy hours because the people that they follow might be leaving to go to work in the morning. So they might be sitting in front of somebody's house at 5, 6 in the morning, or if they haven't seen the people, they might be working a third shift or something like that. They might be working late. So the investigators got to be working late to follow those people to see what they're doing. But a lot of us have to be working when the courts are open so that we can call the courts and things like that.
Okay. Well, we're about out of time, so I really appreciate you coming on and answering these questions. Just a reminder, if anybody is watching, if you have questions, go ahead and ask them in the comments, and I'll make sure that Tina sees them and can answer them if you have them. I also want to remind you, next week, we do have some more interviews. I'm actually interviewing a personal trainer, and I'm also interviewing the person that runs the Big Purple Barn. Both of them happen to be named Tara, so kind of funny there. So I can't remember the days that we're watching them, so just make sure you're following the page so you can get notified whenever we have any live videos. So Everybody, again, thank you so much, Tina, for coming on. And everybody, thank you for watching. And we will see you next time. So Tina, I'm sorry, before we go, do you have any final words to say?
Yeah, I just want to say be careful about what you post online personally about yourself. Don't ever assume that the person you're talking to is your age. There's a lot of bad people out there, and you have to be very careful. The best advice is be very open with your parents and talk to them. If something feels funny to you, please, please, please talk to your parents or an adult that you trust. And if somebody wants you to be secretive and not tell your parents things, please don't do that, because I've seen terrible, terrible things happen that I won't even discuss. And don't post personal information about yourself. Even if you don't have your last name, if you say that your name is Jennifer and you go to Heritage Elementary and you're talking about walking home from school by yourself, people can figure out your name is Jennifer, you're a cheerleader, you go to Heritage Elementary, they will follow you and potentially hurt you. So don't post any personal information about yourself. That's the best advice I can give.
Thank you. That's excellent advice. Thank you very much for sharing that. So again, Tina, I really appreciate you getting tongue tied today. I really appreciate you coming on and talking with us. And so we'll hopefully see you again soon. Thanks a lot.
You got it. Thank you, Chrissy.
Thank you.